matter how coffee is purchased, coffee has an impact in the world.
It's so important for us to put a name and a face and a place to every relationship that we have in the farming community. When we talk about this idea of a relationship with a producer, it means real relationship. They invite us to their home, they feed us, they make sure we're comfortable, they show us around their place. We believe in the same thing and bring them up here. The supply of coffee is at risk for two major reasons. One is climate change, but the other thing, of course, is often the farmers being paid less than what it costs for them to produce it.
So there's urgency on our part to go out and find people doing the right thing for their people, for the planet, and for their community with coffee, so that we can support the work they do by buying their coffee at a fair and sustainable price.
We want to make sure that the producer can farm in a manner that is environmentally sustainable, make sure they can feed their family, house their family, have security, send their kids off to school, and have a little something left over.
There is really, really important work happening all over the world. And every time we go to a new country, we meet amazing people. And we're pretty excited about the coffee.
We can ethically feel good, morally feel good about how we're purchasing coffee, but the real magic of it is we get a guaranteed supply of coffee at a very stable price. We're all in this one big biosphere floating in space, and how we impact the environment impacts all of us. We all want housing, clothing, and food, and we want something better for the next generation. We're just one human race.
A name, a face, and a place for every coffee we serve.
Please welcome to the stage lead adventurers and co-founders of One Big Island in Space, Bob and Michelle Fish.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. We are so happy to be here.
Hey, listen, before we get started, Michelle and I want to let you know that you are amazing. Not only are you changing lives in your stores and in your communities, but you're changing lives all over the world. Yeah. Listen, we all know that the coffee supply is under threat, and the two major culprits of that shortage are the ongoing momentum of climate change and the supply-demand nature of the sea contract that creates unreliable boom and bust for coffee producers. Both events are causing coffee producers to abandon their farms, leaving less coffee for a growing population. The BIGGBY solution through One Big Island in Space is to build farm direct relationships that can guarantee a reliable supply of coffee with stable prices. I want to take a moment to define the words farm direct for you. Farm direct is the act of the end user, that's us, purchasing directly from the farmer or producer and eliminating as many buyers and brokers, importers and exporters as possible. With each elimination comes a savings that in turn is pushed down to the grower or farmer, creating economic viability. Farm direct also means that we are developing long-term and lasting relationships with the people producing the product we serve every day. This means that we get to support their vision of success, and they get to support our vision of success. And excuse me, out of that comes a mutual understanding, trust, love, and an implied investment in the future of the relationship by both parties. And out of that comes better coffee. Last, Farm Direct means we have complete traceability of our product, a higher ethical standard, and a higher environmental standard, and know that communities are well served. The result for BIGGBY is that we have primary access to a reliable supply of coffee at a stable price. The mission handed to One Big Island in Space by BIGGBY Coffee was to be 100% farm direct by 2028. We began that mission 5 years ago, and to date we have 3 farm direct relationships, one with Living Hope Zambia, one with El Recreo in Nicaragua, and now with Finca Fortaleza in Chiapas, Mexico. These 3 farm direct relationships will make up nearly 36% of our 2.2 million pounds sold or served by the end of this year. We will be crossing the 50% mark of Farm Direct by mid-2024. Crossing that threshold will trigger something many of you have been asking for, and that is more communication and marketing to the BIGGBY consumer about what we're up to with Farm Direct and One Big Island in Space. And that's exactly what will happen. Another milestone we'll reach is that our BIGGBY Best Blend will be 100% Farm Direct before the end of 2024. This will put us on solid footing for a conversation with the consumer about Farm Direct and our journey at One Big Island in Space. You know, perhaps you follow our travels, and so you would know that we are continuously visiting farms and building relationships. And for us, most recently in Sierra Leone, Burundi, Sumatra, Rwanda, Kenya, Vietnam, Guatemala, and Mozambique. And look out for Mozambique, because it's going to be something else. But today, we would like to announce our newest and 4th Farm Direct relationship coming on later this year. Al Lopez and his wife Leticia have been doing amazing work at their farm at the beautiful Finca T in the Copan region of Honduras. Known for quality coffee, but notable for its work in the community even more. They and 14 other producers are with us today, and we hope that you will take the time to meet them all. Finally, you can proudly know since the inception of the Farm Direct program, you have sold nearly 2 million pounds of Farm Direct coffee. Congratulations.
So, on behalf of BIGGBY Coffee, through One Big Island in Space, we are forming lifetime partnerships with coffee producers all over the world that are doing the right thing for their people, for the planet, and for their communities. Your 3 Farm Direct partners are truly remarkable, and we look forward to sharing some of their stories with you here today. But we want to do more than just tell you their stories. We're here to put a name and a face and a place on every cup of coffee that you serve. We want you to know them, and we want you to feel as connected to them as we do. Last year, you got the chance to meet the Ferre family from El Recreo in Nicaragua. Several of you have even been to their farm. This year, we're introducing you to Juana Chapoya from our first Farm Direct relationship in Zambia, and Maria Esther and Pascual Castillo from our newest partnership in Chiapas, Mexico. They're doing some pretty heavy lifting in the world, changing lives for the better in places that desperately need it. But the thing that Bob and I know, and that we always carry with us in our hearts, is that it's all of you who make the changes possible. It's all of you because of the great work our partners are doing. None of it would matter if they didn't have a marketplace, if they didn't have you. And our commitment to you is that you're going to be able to feel really proud of the impact that the coffee you serve is having in the world. No child labor. No dangerous chemicals. The coffee is grown in a way that protects and even restores the environment. And it provides opportunities for a better life for the people who grow it and the communities that they serve. So how do we do that? Well, every farm direct journey starts with a conversation, usually a lot of conversations, and they are deep and they are wide-ranging. We need to know that our values are aligned. But that alone is not enough. We have seen plenty of prospects that looked great on paper, but the only way that we can truly know is by going what we call boots on the ground. Over the past 5 years, we have been boots on the ground in more than a dozen countries, walking the coffee fields with producers, sharing time and meals, spending days on the farm, and really digging deep into what they're up to. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And we've had to have some really hard conversations. Frankly, there are a lot more no's with what we do than there are yeses. But we will never compromise our values. We will never compromise your values. Every pound of farm direct coffee that we buy is having an impact in the world that you can be proud of and that you are making possible. So, we're going to start our video journey today with a farm update from our very first partnership with Living Hope in Ndola, Zambia. They've been our partners since 2019, and their coffee currently makes up 50% of BIGGBY's French roast, as well as being launched this year as a single origin. You're going to get to meet Wana Chapoya, who is here with us today and is, now that he's finally done with university, the farm's full-time coffee producer and agronomist. And I want you to keep your ears open for something that has become a central tenet in how OBIIS does its work in the field, and that's something that we call farm share. It's us bringing our producer partners along with us to walk the fields of our farm direct prospects. There is nothing else like it happening out there in the world, and it's really powerful.
All right, let's roll the video.
You are marvelous, yeah.
Living Hope from Zambia is really unusual because it is an orphanage that started a coffee farm to make itself more sustainable.
You are marvelous, yeah.
Typically, when you meet producers in the world, they've been in business, their grandfather was in the same business, their great-great-great-grandfather was growing coffee. Here you had a bunch of people who had no idea, but they knew that coffee could grow there.
So we've been working with Living Hope since 2019, but when we visited last year, we got really close to Wana Chapoya. And Wana Chapoya was going to university for agronomy full-time. On the weekends and at nights, if that's possible, he's been in command of the farm. For several years, the yield had been going down, and that's just generally not the way it's supposed to go. We asked leadership for a plan, and really that's what we were coming to check up on in 2023. What's the progress that was made? So last time we went, there was a building being worked on that was for the workers, who before then had to eat outside and go to the restroom someplace else and so on and so forth. So now there's a new kitchen, there's an eating space, there are showers for the end of a hard day's work, restrooms, changing rooms, but also there's a coffee lab in that building. And so from that sort of hard asset perspective, there's a real leap forward. They've broke ground on their new washing station, and I would say that they are 3/4 of the way through that.
Currently, what they're using is really pretty antiquated and too small for their production.
This is where you take a cherry and take the seed out. As yields improve, they're going to need a more sophisticated washing station.
They've also taken great leaps forward in their composting process. That's something that Wana's science brain has been really interested in pursuing. They didn't used to compost at all, and then they went to just sort of straight letting things kind of rot naturally. And then they've added this new layer of using worms, and Wana has plans to expand that.
And Wana has created, it's called a compost tea. And it's just a more accelerated method of composting where you take green and brown matter and put it in a mesh bag, immerse that in water, and all that leaches out to the water. But when you apply it to the plants in the field, there's a much faster uptake on that, especially with the war in Ukraine as fertilizer costs keep going up.
The compost provides some natural fertilizer for the coffee plants, but it also provides fertilizer for the kitchen garden that they've attached to the side of the coffee farm. They're growing all kinds of things from beans and cabbages to native greens. And that kitchen garden helps keep the children at Living Hope fed.
We've been having a conversation about shade trees for some time. This is the first time that we've come and see those show up and be in place. A coffee tree, especially the Arabica variety, is really an understory tree. It requires some cover over it because you want the cherries to develop relatively slowly. But the other reason to do it is just from a climate change perspective. When you put shade trees up, it just lowers the temperature of the farm altogether. It prevents the evaporation and aspiration of moisture into the air. And so having the shade just produces a better product, but is more ecologically sound.
Juana picked a particular variety that, in addition to providing shade to the coffee plants, it drops its leaves when the coffee plants need full sun. And when it drops its leaves, it helps fix the nitrogen in the soils. It is its own form of fertilizer.
Another really important part of the agronomy that's going on is some regeneration. That's where you take out old plants and you put in new ones. And in this case, it was almost a necessity. There was an infestation of white borer, and it's just really hard to treat. And if you treat it, you got to do it with chemicals, and then you're not doing it in a sustainable manner, and so on and so forth. So it's just better to pull out the old bushes, treat the soil a little bit with organic material, and then plant anew. We saw a lot of new regeneration going on.
When we initially got into this relationship with Living Hope, we were really thinking a lot about the orphans. But what we've really come to understand is how important Living Hope is as a way of driving improvements in the region.
So in 2022, we had to decide, well, who's going to be the face of Living Hope Coffee? Really, one of the most powerful moments of this year's visit is when we got all the workers together, and we already had the prototype of the Living Hope bag, and we did the reveal on that.
The whole point of our single origin releases is really to put a name and a face and a place on the coffee that we're buying through these partnerships. And nobody is more deserving of that name and that face and that place than Juana Chapoya.
And you know, the workers, it was palpable the pride that they had in this. We announced our cupping score at the same time too, which is an 82.5.
We got a great tour from Juana the day after he finished school. I mean, he's really not had a weekend off in 4 years. And we certainly didn't give him one when we landed, did we? And then the day after that, we put him on a plane with us to go to Kenya and Mozambique to be our OBIIS agronomist with us for the tour, part of our farm share program.
There we are the next day at the Zambian airport, ready to fly off to Kenya. And we had this motley crew with us. We brought Kim, our photographer, Nathan's with us, Rich from Paramount's with us, Heather's with us, and this young gentleman has to integrate with that group right away. But he just has a way of being with people that makes it easy. Arriving in Kenya, we all pile out of the car like a bunch of clowns, and we're like, hey, everybody's here, and here's our friend from Zambia. And the folks in Kenya were like, well, I thought you guys were bringing a coffee farmer. Well, we're like, no, this is Juana. He's a coffee farmer and an agronomist, and he's from Zambia. And they were like, we were expecting somebody so much older than him.
So usually when we land in a coffee field, whether we like it or not, what we find is that it's Bob, me, and the coffee farmer, and then a circle of people around us. But this time in Kenya, it was different. Started with Bob, me, and the coffee farmer, but Juana was over here having a conversation with some of the other small farmers that are friends of the coffee farmer we were there to visit. And within about 5 minutes, there was a circle around Juana. It was Bob and I over here, like all by ourselves. which was awesome, I have to say. That's what we were there for. It was really cool. Particularly, I think, for somebody who's in their 20s and just out of school. When you walk onto a coffee farm and there are people that have been doing it for 30 or 40 years, and they're asking for your advice, they may not really want your advice, but they're politely asking for your opinion on their processes. Finding a way, as the young person, to deliver that information in a way that doesn't shut people down, that doesn't have them kind of like cross their arms and roll their eyes, that takes real skill. I give him 1,000% credit for his grace under that kind of pressure. He was amazing.
Michelle and I have a lot of coffee knowledge. And Michelle's a master gardener, and I've been in the coffee industry since 1995. And there's not much wool you can pull over our eyes, so to speak. But what happens when you bring two farmers together? Even though you're farming in different parts of the world, you share the problems and the solutions with each other. And everybody feels like they come away learning that much more.
Also, it really does help guide our decision making about how an opportunity could or couldn't work. For us, it's the people first. And because we're dealing with producers that also are about people first, they have an intuition about what's happening, not just on the coffee farm, but with the coffee workers and with the pickers and how that's all working.
I'm not really sure whether he was giving the farmers energy or the farmers were giving him energy, but the energy that we had throughout the day just seemed to be infinite.
Coffee farming can be so isolating. And then all of a sudden, out of might as well be from outer space, comes this OBIIS team with another producer. There's so many things that go into growing coffee that are really specific and only about growing coffee. And being able to share that with somebody else from a faraway place is really, really powerful. A lot of trust comes really quickly when you spend hours on end in the back of some vehicle.
By the time we get to the end of the day, we do a debrief. And, frankly, we didn't know how would it go with Juana through the day. And of course, there were our observations of how well it went. But through the debrief, we could really just see that Juana's confidence was higher. And we were looking at only getting about 3.5 hours worth of sleep before we had to take off for Mozambique.
So the thing about getting to Mozambique is it takes a while. It takes 3 flights. And then it's a bush plane ride, about 45 minutes, to the Gorongosa base camp, where we met Sofia Molina. And then we climb into the back of one of those trucks and we ride a steadily deteriorating set of roads as we get closer and closer to where we're staying. It was one thing to take Juana to Kenya, where coffee farming looks very different than it does in Zambia. But when we landed on the coffee fields in Mozambique and Juana took a look at what they were doing, he felt right at home. And the thing about that was so cool is Julius, who is their head technical guy, their head agronomist, he was outlining the problems they're facing. They have the same white borer that they have in Zambia. They have the same other kind of pest that's reduced their yield by half. And they're trying to start up composting, but they're facing these challenges. And Juana was in his element because he's faced all of these things and he has solutions that they had never even considered in Mozambique. And when we watched the conversation develop between Juana and Julius out in the fields, it was just this bubbling up, churning of excitement and energy.
I believe Sofia Molina went, this is mind-blowing. One thing that we notice when we're out there, and this used to happen with us with Jorge as well, we're out there in the field with Juana and everybody wants to hire him.
The confidence boost that is for a young farmer just getting started out in his career as a farmer is enormous. It opens up his world too.
What happened with Juana is what happens when anybody gets in contact with One Big Island in Space. You begin to realize that we're not talking about coffee, we're talking about people.
So one of the things Juana told us about that time that the leadership at Living Hope came to him and asked him to switch careers is one of the things that allowed that door to open for him was that he understood the higher purpose of helping make that orphanage sustainable, of coffee having a higher purpose. And therefore, as a coffee farmer, he has a higher purpose. And that, I think, has just gotten stronger for Juana as he's gone through his education and out into the world now as a fully formed agronomist. And coffee as this higher calling is something that I think Juana is really excited about. We know we're excited about it. Purpose is why we get up every morning. It's exciting to have Juana on the team.
So we got the idea for FarmShare kind of almost by accident. We needed help with some translation on a farm trip to Mexico. So we brought our partner, Dr. Jorge Ferre from El Recreo in Nicaragua. We brought him along with us. And I think it took us about 5 minutes to realize that having him walk the fields with us was so much more valuable than just helping us to translate the Spanish. We were able to really see what was happening on the farm in a whole different light with a much deeper understanding. So we started taking him with us on all the OBIIS trips all around the world and as often as we could. And I am really, really pleased to share with you that his role in OBIIS has become official. Jorge has joined our team as our Director of Sustainable Farming and Quality Assurance. In that role, he will continue the work he's already done with us as a consultant, helping OBIIS to vet our farm direct prospects, help us to manage our ongoing relationships, and to help assure the quality of the coffee that you serve. We couldn't be more thrilled to have him, even if we wish it was under different circumstances. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can read more about that on our blog at One Big Island in Space.
All right, so that's really cool. We're going to transition really quick because we have some stuff on the tables for you today, but it's important stuff. So first, in our effort to give you a really tangible name, face, and place, we've created a collectible farmer calendar with all of our current producers on it. And if you didn't pick a copy up on your way in, you can pick up a copy on your way out. And you'll get 10 more copies delivered to your stores to hang or to give to staff or to use as a learning tool or to give it to a customer. It's up to you. Our hope with the farm calendar you receive today is that you will have Juana Chapoya or the Ferre family or Maria Esther and Pascual sign your copy. If you'll hold on to it, I'm pretty sure in a decade you could put that in eBay. Does eBay still exist? Yeah, okay. On the back of the calendar, by the way, you'll find the current Farm Direct poundage. So you'll see our progress since we started, and that will always be updated every year. And inside the calendar are birthdays of the producers. So, if you want to email people, use Facebook or whatever to say happy birthday, you can. There's fun coffee facts that you can use at a cocktail party. And finally, there are QR codes that will take you to the farmers' stories. This is our first edition, so I want you to count on many more editions as the year go by. Now, we know nobody needs a calendar, that's for sure. The calendar is just a medium to provide you the pictures, so I just want to be clear about that. Also on your table are farmer cards. They're like business card size that you can take with you today. And if you find them useful in your stores or something you'd want to give to your customers or staff or use for training, we can easily get you more. But if you're having trouble with everybody's name and what face that goes to, these cards can help you out. We've also given you a bag of Living Hope coffee for you that's in the traditional single origin bag format that we introduced with El Recreo last year, but this time with Juana Chapoya and Living Hope as the feature. Last, there's a coaster on your table, and this one is really important to me, that says Meet the Farmer with a QR code on it. So if you follow this QR code, you can register your interest in going on a Farm Direct visit. We know a lot of you have told us in a variety of ways that you would like to go on a Farm Direct visit, but this will be the definitive list. Keep in mind that a trip to Central America will cost about $2,500 plus or minus, and a trip to Africa much more. There will be scholarships and partial scholarships available for baristas. And if you've won Store of the Year or Barista of the Year at any point with BIGGBY Coffee, you are always eligible to travel with us for free one time. Yeah. So, thank you. We will always bring the farm and the farmer to you. You can just count on that. But what we hope is that you will come fly with us someday, and that you will see for yourself all the great work that's happening in this world of ours. And I guarantee you this one thing, it'll change your life.
So let's roll the video.
Coffee's romantic, and it's something that we love. The magic for BIGGBY Coffee is that we literally know and have spent time with the people that are producing our coffee. The value that OBIIS adds is you are creating change all over this world by knowing the name and the face and the place of every cup of coffee that we serve. We're investing in real relationships and removing the curtain that separates production of coffee from the end user of coffee.
So since we started 5 years ago, we are almost to 2 million pounds of coffee purchased through a farm direct model. It's had impact in Jinotega, Nicaragua, in Chiapas, Mexico, in Ndola, Zambia. 35% sounds good, but we really want to be to 100% yesterday.
By providing a marketplace to those people, the change and impact that needs to happen in this world is happening at a local level by locals. But to make that relationship real, you really have to know who those people are.
When we see what that relationship, that direct relationship can mean both for the farm and for the owner-operator, we really understand the power of the OBIIS Farm Direct model.
Come with us, join us on a journey, because I guarantee you, once you land and you meet that person and you see that farm and you experience that country, it'll change your life forever.
A name, a face, and a place for every coffee we serve.
Thank you. We hope you guys sign up.
So, as it happens, we're in the process of planning our next BIGGBY Nation trip for this December to visit Finca La Fortaleza in Chiapas, Mexico. So if you're interested in going, signing up with the QR code is your first step. But in the meantime, I am so excited to share with you what Maria Esther and Pascual Castillo are up to in their part of the world, and why we are so honored to be their partners.
Roll the video.
In 2022 at BNS, we kind of teased that there might be a really great partnership coming online, and we are so thrilled and delighted to be able to announce that our third Farm Direct partner is Finca La Fortaleza and Maria Esther Salt and her husband Pascual Castillo, who are doing really just incredible work in Chiapas, Mexico. Pascual Castillo had been in the coffee business for decades. When he first went to Chiapas looking for coffee, he fell in love with the people there. And so over the years, he developed very, very close partnerships with thousands of small producers in Chiapas. They went through some hard times together. There were moments of great violence in Mexican society. Sometimes even Pascual's company's own drivers would refuse to go pick up coffee in these far-flung villages in Chiapas. But Pascual never, ever left those farmers behind. And then their ultimate test came in 2014, when a slow simmering epidemic of rust in the coffee plants just blew up. And by the end of 2014, coffee production in Chiapas went to zero. every coffee producer in Chiapas lost the entirety of their crop. They had no way to feed their families. Pascual and his wife, Maria Esther, they decided that that was time for them to really step up. They happened to own some land in Chiapas. It was a successful cattle farm. And they made the decision pretty much overnight that they were going to transform that successful cattle farm into a successful model coffee farm that would allow a way for the farmers to learn new agronomy, for them to work with different species of coffee that might be more rust resistant, but also in the time of the transformation that would provide employment for these small producers who had no way to feed their families.
When you walk into Finca Fortaleza, it feels like you're in the Garden of Eden. You can hear water running and dripping everywhere. The soil, instead of feeling compacted, feels loose, as it should in a coffee farm. You hear the birds singing. It's just beautiful.
When we first met Pascual, he's a big man. He's very tall. He's a little gruff, although he's very proper and kind. And you get the sense that he's definitely taken a look at you. His wife, Maria Esther, is just as warm as he is gruff, as likely to give you a hug as he is to give you the look down the bridge of his nose.
I have never met anybody that knows more about coffee than Pascual, and even his own family is like at the dinner table, enough with the coffee talk. You know, one of our rituals when we're at the farm, of course, is to go for a morning hike. Interestingly, Pascual claims to not speak English, and of course my Spanish is really poor, but somehow magically out there, Pascual does speak English, and we've gotten quite close.
Maria Esther, she is a woman after my own heart. I find the work she does in that community to be so inspiring. One of the things that she organized was breast cancer screening. And Maria Esther made it a point to go to every family that she could reach. And they found women with breast cancer. And many were able to get treatment only because Maria Esther had the passion to pull things together to make that possible for that community. You know, so many of these small producers have never been on the grid. They don't have a birth certificate. They don't have a bank account. And in order for them to really come into the light as coffee producers, Maria Esther works family by family to get the documentation needed. It's just a huge undertaking.
The thing about La Fortaleza is it's not just a coffee farm. It's an incubator of small producers. And what Maria Esther and Pascual do is they give all of their knowledge to all the farms. And we're talking about thousands of farms. They lend people, they're agronomists. They loan people money in order to get them through the season. They pick up their coffee. They're good for their terms always. One thing that they have just given away is over 2 million coffee seedlings. When producers are dropping off their cherry to go through their dry mill, they'll often give them new seedlings. Why these new seedlings? Well, the old varieties were not resistant to rust, and the new varieties are. So they're just giving them that particular leg up.
So once we decided that Finca La Fortaleza was going to be the perfect partner for us, truly we would have been really, really happy to buy all of the coffee from Finca La Fortaleza because we support the work they're doing for small producers. But Maria Esther and Pascual had other ideas. They really wanted to make this about the small producer. So they very, very carefully selected 4 that they thought would both meet our needs, but also serve as leaders and beacons to the other small producers that they work with. This is for our mutual benefit. And at first, as we were trying to figure out the economics of this deal, the small producers being in there made for some complicated math, right? We were trying to struggle with exactly how we, got the numbers right. And I'm like, why are we bothering with the small producers again? Until the light bulb hit me. How else are we going to change the coffee world? Because that's where most of the coffee is grown, is by small producers with less than 10 acres. How are we ever going to reach a farm that's only got 10 acres? That wouldn't be possible in Chiapas, Mexico, without Maria Esther and Pascual. They've made that possible. The thing about promises in the coffee world is that so many of them go unfulfilled for the small producers. So we were there in December when we were just a promise, right? This is how it's going to go when we buy your coffee. And then we went back again in March when the harvest was done and everyone had received their payment. And we had a chance to go visit all those farms. Miguel Angel Cruz, he had been Pascual's right-hand person through a lot of this transformation at La Fortaleza, and I think he took the leap based on his trust in Pascual. But I'm not sure his family was convinced. When we went to Miguel's farm, this time his wife was there, along with all of their children. Towards the end, she said, you know, I had to come because I didn't believe you. Why are you doing this? And Bob tried to explain that, you know, we believe in a different model and our intention is to be here for the long term. And she started to cry and she said, thank you. No one's ever cared like this before. God bless BIGGBY Coffee. And she says, you don't understand what this is going to mean for my family.
So she's saying that she's like asking for God to bless you and bless your company, that she barely understands a little bit of English, but that they're very grateful and they ask for God to bless you and your business so they can prosper too.
Don Pascual Hernandez has been in the coffee business for 30 years, and no buyer has ever walked his land. There's no pathways. And he wanted to show us the top of the hill. I mean, the rest of the group completely bailed on the whole thing, but there was...
That would be me.
There I was with Pascual, and we were climbing up tree by tree on our hands and knees to get to the top of the mountain on that particular day, but that was so important to him.
Juanita, Don Pascual's wife, she took my face in her hands and was stroking my cheek, and she started to cry, and she told me that she had been praying all of her life that someone would come to buy their coffee, someone would come and walk their lands and come and meet their family and would come and care about the people behind their coffee. All Juanita wanted ever in her life was a better shot for her children and a chance for her family to be okay. I think that's all any of us wants. You know, Marta is a woman in a male-dominated world. She certainly wanted us to know that she was tough. We were on her coffee field, and she was talking about her plants and her plans for her plants. And I said, well, tell me about your dreams for your children. And she stopped, and she kind of hitched a little bit. And she said that her dreams aren't just for her children. Her dreams are for all of the children in her community, because she wants all of them to have a chance to have a dream that they can fulfill. She wasn't able to pursue a higher education, and she really, really, really wanted that. She never wants to see another child have that experience in her community. And she actually welled up. And then about 10 minutes later, she got mad at me for making her well up. She's like, I'm not a baby. I'm like, no one thinks you are. It speaks to the fact that everybody has dreams. And Marta is willing to do whatever it takes to make the dreams of those children come true. So when we were first taken to meet Solomon at his farm, once you understand the family dynamics, it should come as no surprise that actually we barely met Solomon. We mostly met his dad, who is this larger-than-life character in town. And Solomon was standing off, like in the back, in the corner, you know, just smiling and nodding. Finally, we had a chance to spend some time just with Solomon and his wife and their beautiful kids. He's very proud of what he's done on his coffee farm, and he should be.
La Fortaleza was transformed from trampled cattle land, and we never saw that transformation physically, but when we visited Solomon's farm, we saw it. There was a line where you could step into the farm, and it was all shaded and 15 degrees cooler, and the plants were just lush. And then just step 1 yard over trampled hot grass.
The impact that that kind of transformation has on the landscape is enormous, right? It lowers the temperature, it's really good for the birds, it provides natural habitat. But the impact that has to the planet is even bigger in terms of carbon sequestration. It is so powerful. If we could do that to all of Chiapas, Chiapas would become this guiding light in the world for what is possible. Solomon said he's always going to know that he's going in the right direction if he looks behind him and he sees his own son following in his footsteps. No matter how coffee is purchased, coffee has an impact in the world.
When you look for people that are treating the planet right, treating their people right, and investing in their communities, what you're doing is you're finding people that are loving people. All we're doing is finding people that are doing this, and we're providing a marketplace. But that marketplace creates change all over the world.
A name, a face, and a place for every coffee we serve.
Yeah. We love that story. We love that story.
So, there are things you hear us say a lot because we think they're the best descriptors of what we're up to. People, planet, community. Say it with me. A name, a face, and a place for every cup of coffee we serve. Boots on the ground, farm share, and then this, the fifth pillar of OBIIS, full circle. By the time we formalize a farm direct relationship, we have spent countless hours on our partners' farms. We have walked their fields, we've peeked under their hoods, so to speak. I mean, obviously, we want to get to know them in a deep and meaningful way, and we want to share their stories with you through the blog and these videos. But just as importantly, we also want them to get to know you, to get to know us. We want them to be able to experience for themselves what BIGGBY Coffee is all about, and to see the great work that all of you are up to in your stores and in your communities. So we bring our Farm Direct partners here to BNS. And this year, we are so excited to be hosting all three partners whose coffee you serve: Living Hope, El Recreo, and La Fortaleza, as well as Finca Tea, who will be coming online as partners later this year. We also have with us a few Farm Direct prospects, people that we love and support, but they're not quite ready for us yet. We hope to be able to do business sometime in the future. The farmers have been with us since last Friday, and we have kept them very busy. They have visited BIGGBY Coffee cafes. They've taken a tour of Paramount. They had their first ever farm summit, which was just a meeting among the farmers to build their relationships together. They're learning from each other, and we're all learning from each other, because in the end, we are more than just partners. We're family. I encourage you to take the opportunity while you're here to introduce yourselves to them and ask them any questions that you have, and of course, maybe even get their autographs on your fancy new calendars. But right now, I'd like to invite our new Director of Sustainable Farming and Quality Assurance, Dr. Jorge Ferre, to the stage so that he can help introduce you to your Farm Direct partners. From Inotega, Nicaragua, and the El Recreo Coffee Estate, Liana and Carlos Ferre.
And from Boston, Massachusetts, and El Recreo Estate, Miriam and Hector Morales.
And from Chiapas, Mexico, and Finca La Fortaleza, Maria Esther and Pascual Castillo.
And from the Copan region of Honduras, from Finca Tea, Al and Leticia Lopez.
And the rock star, the face of Zambia and Living Hope Coffee, Juana Chapoya.